And here's the deal, not all the time, but sometimes the way we handle a challenging situation makes it even worse, makes it even more oppressive and more exhausting, and we become battle weary, and we become exhausted, and we become depressed, and we become oppressed, right? But that is not God's plan for you. I don't see anywhere in the Bible, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see anywhere in the Bible that God says, my plan for you is for you to be oppressed, battle weary, exhausted, depleted, defeated. Do you really see that anywhere that that's God's plan for you? No, it is not. Actually, God says he wants the opposite. Romans 15:13 says, I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in him. Then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen. That is God's plan for you. So God revealed to me three main reasons that we grow totally exhausted and depressed and battle weary. First, you've been relying on your own wisdom and your own strength instead of relying on God's mighty power and applying his perfect wisdom for the situation. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I rely on my own brilliant ideas and they're not working so well. But I still keep on doing them anyway. Or number two, you've exhausted yourself trying to control or manipulate people and even trying to manipulate God into doing what you want so you can have the life that you think will make you happy. You know, I'm not going to make you raise your hand, but I know in a room this size, there's probably 15 or 20 or more women who are controllers. And you would say, well, not me. Okay, sure, whatever. You can believe that if you want to. Or number three, God is actually allowing you to grow battle weary. He's actually allowing you to grow battle weary because he wants you to get desperate enough that you will seek him and experience him at a whole new, deep level, right? And that comes sometimes when you're desperate enough. I've had some of those desperate moments. I don't know about you. What is the remedy if you're battle weary because you've been relying on your own power, your own wisdom, your own knowledge, instead of relying on God's power and guidance? Well, the answer is simple, and yet we're going to unpack it here, but the answer is to make a decision to trust in God's mighty power and to begin searching out and applying the brilliant guidance contained in his word. It's really like a decision. You know, I've talked to so many women that are like, you know, how do I know that I can trust God? How do I know? Where's the ironclad guarantee that I can trust God? And all I can say is, you won't know until you do it. You won't know. I think I've told you before about my zip line adventure. I hate zip lines. I hate heights. I hate walking out into thin air. I really don't like that very much, right? And so my husband and I, for our anniversary several years ago, we were up at Whistler during the summer, and they're like, you know, there's a zip line way up high, like hundreds of feet in the air between like two mountains, and I'm up there in this little perch, and they say, step off the perch, you know? And I'm like, and there's this little cable thing that's supposed to hold me as I step off into thin air with like hundreds of feet below me. And I was like, how can I, you know, I just couldn't do it. Kind of like when you're on a high diving board. You know, do you remember that when you're a little kid? You're like, I just can't make myself get off the diving board because it's like this. And so I remember just standing there forever. And do you know when I realized that I could really trust that thing was going to hold me? When I actually stepped off. I didn't know for sure until I stepped off and it held me. It's kind of the same way with God. Like, you won't know that he's trustworthy until you step forward and just trust him. And then you find that he is trustworthy. So what might it look like for you to trust in God's power and guidance for your battles? Okay, just going to go over a bunch of thoughts here. Number one, stop doing what you've been doing because it isn't working. What dysfunctional pattern do you need to stop? Think about it for a moment. What dysfunctional pattern do you need to stop? In other words, like, let's say your husband and you are always fighting about the same thing. What could you change? If your mother constantly criticizes you, what could you do differently in that situation? If your finances are constantly in a shambles, what could you do differently? You know, what is the dysfunctional pattern that God's saying, like, you know, maybe you can make a change here, right?